This is Michael Popok, Legal AF, with breaking news. If Al Capone was brought down by tax fraud, Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago criminal investigation of his mishandling and retention of classified documents could be brought down by a maintenance worker he probably doesn't even know the name of, that he paid a minimum wage at Mar-a-Lago, but who saw everything, who participated in the moving of documents illegally away from the FBI, away from the federal government in response to a subpoena and then a search warrant and then federal court orders, and the misleading of Donald Trump's own lawyer at the time, Evan Corcoran. The maintenance worker is working with the federal prosecutors. He's unnamed for now for his own protection, but we have corroborated evidence corroborated reporting by the Washington Post and by the New York Times that this maintenance worker, this silent worker watching everything, worked with Walt Nauta, N-A-U-T-A, who is the personal valet and assistant to Donald Trump, who had the unenviable task, the short straw, of moving boxes and documents in and out of storage rooms before the lawyer for Donald Trump could go take a look, as the lawyer was negotiating with the FBI for the return of that information. In other words, Donald Trump, right out from under the nose of his own lawyer, working with Walt Nauta and this maintenance worker, moved the documents in and out of storage rooms so that his lawyer wouldn't discover them and wouldn't turn them over to the FBI. That is criminal intent, ladies and gentlemen, for Donald Trump. That is willful knowledge. It shows that Donald Trump knew, oh crap, I've got all that classified material sitting in that storage room and in my desk drawers. First, let me mislead my lawyers, Christina Bobb at the time, who's already testified against him at the grand jury, stripped of attorney-client privilege. Evan Corcoran at the time also quit as being the head of the Mar-a-Lago criminal defense team, because obviously he was misled by his own client, Donald Trump. Again, another badge of willful intent or criminal mens rea, criminal mind, right? The maintenance worker says he was enlisted by Walt Nauta to move documents out of the storage room before Donald Trump's own lawyer got to go into the storage room to look for himself, meaning that Evan Corcoran was working on false knowledge generated by Donald Trump when he was discussing these matters and negotiating them with the FBI and the counterintelligence director or the head of the counterintelligence unit at the FBI, Jay Bratt. Jay Bratt had a scheduled meeting in June 3rd of last year to go to Mar-a-Lago. This is before the August search warrant is executed by FBI agents. In June, they were still trying to get voluntary cooperation, but with court orders and subpoenas. And Jay Bratt met with Evan Corcoran at Mar-a-Lago. Evan Corcoran would not let him into the storage facility, the storage rooms or desk drawers himself, but represented to Jay Bratt and handed him at that time, based on information given to him by his own client, based on Walt Nauta, right, telling him, here's the room, right? Evan Corcoran testified to the grand jury, and based on his notes, his once attorney-client privilege notes that Judge Beryl Howell required he turn over to the prosecutors, wrote in his notes that Walt Nauta tried to be in the room with me when I was doing my review of documents to interact with the FBI, and I told him he couldn't. In other words, he got the sense that Walt Nauta was trying to interfere with his ability as a lawyer to do his job for his client at the behest of Donald Trump. So Evan Corcoran has already testified, has already turned over all of his notes. Walt Nauta has been caught on videotape because there was video surveillance cameras in that area turned over to the FBI and to the federal prosecutors, showing Walt Nauta moving boxes on dates just before or just after the arrival of the FBI. In fact, it looks like, based on reporting, they did a dress rehearsal, a practice run of moving documents to see if they could get away with it. So Evan Corcoran, at worst, was complicit in a crime and fraud involving documents. And at best for him, he was duped by his own client working with Walt Nauta and this maintenance worker to take documents out of the storage unit prior to him negotiating with the FBI so that he didn't have the knowledge, right? He had plausible deniability, if you will. Except he didn't know that he was being given plausible deniability by his own client who was pulling documents out from under him before he could negotiate with the FBI. Today's Legal AF is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need from yourself. I know in my own life I'm dealing with a lot of different pressures. Family, friends, my podcast colleagues, and work. I mean, I am a practicing attorney when I'm not podcasting. And just generally taking care of business. Because we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burned out. Therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Therapy, it's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries, and generally speaking, how to become the best version of yourself. And by the way, therapy isn't just for those who've experienced a major trauma. It's for everyone, because what you're going through matters. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist anytime for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LegalAF today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LegalAF. So when he turned over the now fateful envelope of documents, you remember that before the search warrant where they found, after they executed it, broke down the doors, got in there, looked in the desk drawers, looked in the storage rooms and all of that, the FBI found over 100 top secret and classified documents. But right before that, in June, 2 months earlier, Evan Corcoran handed an envelope with Christina Bobb of a sealed batch that they said represented the entire universe of documents that were top secret or classified that had been taken by Donald Trump. They sealed the envelope with tape. There were 34 of them in there. And then Evan Corcoran dictated a statement that was signed, he's such a coward, not by Evan Corcoran, but by the other lawyer, Christina Bobb, working under him, that said, based on her knowledge, this represents the entire universe of documents, signed under penalty of perjury and handed over. Christina Bobb, knowing she has a problem, has already testified months ago to the grand jury and as her own criminal defense lawyer, because what she wrote is untrue. Because when they broke into Mar-a-Lago and executed the search warrant, they found over 100 more documents behind closed doors. Because Walt Nauta, so the evidence looks like it goes, moved those boxes and documents with this maintenance worker who's now cooperating with the FBI. The maintenance worker also took a photograph of the storage area, gave that to the FBI along with his testimony. So where are we right now with Mar-a-Lago? And this is exactly the reason why just in the last couple of days, Jim Trusty and another lawyer for Donald Trump wrote a 3-line letter, obviously dictated by Donald Trump, to Merrick Garland begging for a meeting, because they know the Mar-a-Lago criminal indictment by Jack Smith's team and the recommendation by Jack Smith to Merrick Garland to do it is just around the corner, meaning like in the next couple of weeks. That's how close we are, because in the last several months, Evan Corcoran, lawyer for Donald Trump for all things Mar-a-Lago, from the beginning, quit the case because he was at once a target and a lead witness for the prosecution against Donald Trump, and had to turn over 50 pages of his notes of all of his interactions with Donald Trump and others, including Walt Nauta, on these issues because a federal judge stripped him of his attorney-client privilege, and he testified. Christina Bobb, lawyer who was involved with all of these issues and signed that perjurious statement under oath that there were only 34 documents when she knew or should have known, if her client had let her, Donald Trump, there were 100 more behind the locked door. Walt Nauta, who they have surveillance video of him moving the boxes on those particular dates I've talked about on this hot take. He's in the hot seat. He'll have to testify. He has a lawyer as the personal valet. There's also a suggestion that the videotapes provided by the Trump Organization to the FBI have been doctored. That's another badge of fraud, of criminal fraud of intent by Donald Trump, that they would have tried to tamper with the video evidence. And now you have, this past week, Tim Parlatore, who was the new Evan Corcoran, who replaced him as the lawyer for all things Mar-a-Lago, as a defense lawyer, not only quitting the case on the eve of the indictment, but going on CNN and on other news channels and in a noisy way blowing kisses to Jack Smith and saying, I've got other evidence that Boris Epshteyn, another lawyer for Donald Trump at the highest level, interfered with Tim Parlatore's ability to represent Donald Trump and to find documents at Bedminster Golf Course and at a storage unit in West Palm Beach paid by the taxpayers that was used by Donald Trump looking for documents, and a subsequent search of Mar-a-Lago. Why does it matter to Tim Parlatore? Because he was the records custodian. The government made him sign a records custodian certificate that he searched Bedminster, the West Palm Beach storage facility, and Mar-a-Lago again, and only found these 3 or 4 additional pieces of paper. Now Tim Parlatore is telling Jack Smith and the world on network cable news that he was interfered with by a lying, his words, Boris Epshteyn working for Donald Trump. That is, and by the way, that's only what we know. That's the data points that we as legal commentators are able to develop based on what our sources and news tell us. That is probably 10% or less of what Jack Smith and his prosecutors and investigators actually have against Donald Trump on Mar-a-Lago and the other cases. But we'll keep reporting, right? That's what these hot takes are all about. I sit at the intersection of law and politics. I try to synthesize all the information that's out there. I break down the data points for you, and I bring them to you based on my 32 years of experience as a trial lawyer doing cases just like this one, so that you can understand it and take it back and discuss these things in a sensible way, in a coherent way with people that matter to you. If you like this kind of content, you like this one in particular on YouTube, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. It helps. It helps bring all of this content to you only on the MeidasTouch network. And then you can follow me also on Legal AF on Wednesdays and Saturdays, the top-rated legal and political podcast in the world right now, only on the MeidasTouch network. And you can follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.